2 games in, no shutouts for Georgia, but it's close. They've been pretty good on defense. We're here to show you what Georgia did against Ball State in the game on Saturday. Brent Rollins, Dayne Young, filmed it live from UGAsports.com. We are supported by Breda Pest Management. They're the official pest management folks with the Georgia Bulldogs, meaning Breda Pest protects Sanford Stadium, Saginaw Coliseum, Foley Field, Ramsey Center, all the places where the Georgia Bulldogs play. If they're good enough for Georgia, I promise you they're good enough for your house. Go check out BredaPest.com. Also presented by ASW Distilleries, distilled by dogs. Fiddler Bourbon is my jam. It is great. You should make sure you have it at your tailgate all season long. Brent, overall with the defense here, I don't know that you learned a whole lot from a game against Ball State. A lot of players continue to play. A lot of freshmen get in the second half, and we'll show some of those. We'll also show some things that maybe could be perceived as weaknesses as offensive coordinators scout, how do I attack Georgia?
Yeah, it's one where they gave up 224 yards. It was quite clear that Ball State really didn't have any playmakers that could potentially hurt Georgia. They did a little bit of some things and got some first down plays and some chunk plays, but overall, just too much talent, too much. And here's the key, too much execution. They got a lot better even as the game went along from the front six for the most part. You didn't have to see the eraser game, in essence, like we saw last week against UT Martin, where the safeties and secondary were having to make a lot of tackles past the line of scrimmage. This game was dominated more so up front.
It was, and that's where we're starting here, just to kind of show how this play is set up. So got an edge set here from 97. We got Christian Miller on the inside that's going to end up diving back toward the line of scrimmage. Keep your eyes on Tyke Smith. Overall, I thought he had another good game, but the effort on this play, not the greatest. What'd you see on this?
Well, one is you got C.J. Allen and Miller. Like C.J. Allen with a little bit of a run blitz here out of the tight front. They end up in the same spot. They both end up sort of that same gap. So Miller's not necessarily there to make the play in the hole. He's working. Zoomed in. Working to the right.
I found a new toy.
There you go. Working to the right, and then him and Allen are end up in the same spot. So now you got 3 guys blocking one, Mr. Munden there. They kind of go past him, but big hit by Mr. David Daniel. And how do you say the last part of his last name?
That's what I go with.
Okay, whatever.
If I'm not confident, I'll just say it fast and get it out.
14, play safety. And one of those, and I think you mentioned this in the post-game show, just consistent presence. Nothing beyond elite, nothing all SEC level, but just consistent, solid presence, little cleanup tackle action from him there as well.
Yeah, I'd like to see a little more aggression from Tyke on this particular play.
Because that's what's interesting with Georgia in this game, and a lot of it was obviously the team and their scheme, but he's in essence playing an outside linebacker right here. I mean, up on the line of scrimmage, boom, go in there with reckless abandon. And he did that a lot of the rest of the game. And I think we're going to show some plays that kind of highlight his performance. I think you look at Malachi Starks, the Bullard injury was or whatever is going on with his ankle. That's like the biggest, most important thing of this game, I think, in terms of takeaways. Like he's just important to the team sort of in a big picture sense. But, oh well.
Let's get at one of the crazy turnovers. There were a few here.
Just a few, right? The ball was, and really all the Starks, other than Starks, like legit, like big time pick. The rest of them are balls up in the air, and you're getting it. Now I will say, Mr. Everett, like it's a great job, but the play isn't over.
Keep playing.
Yeah, keep playing. But 2 things. One, Tyke just seems to. He's always around the ball. He finds himself consistently around the ball in these 2 games, and that's a good sign. And these 2 games have been very positive in that sense for him. I'm curious to see once the offensive systems and athletes get better and how much teams put him in a coverage dilemma because he hasn't really had that a lot these first 2 weeks. But making plays, good for the defense.
Chaz in that throwing lane, a shout out to him for the similar kind of carom interception that ended up in his hands.
Yes, and what's amazing with Chaz in both instances, like a couple things. One, the way their linemen were cutting on certain passes, like I was shocked that a safety or a corner didn't come and get a pick six, kind of seeing that maybe out of the corner of their eye or in front of them. But the interception from Chaz was as much hustle as it was phenomenal athletic play, because he sees the ball out and he's going to go turn around and run and make a tackle. And it was a great play from him on that. But and him overall in terms of positive game, big leap forward from what we saw a week ago against UT Martin.
Showed you Tyke and Everett there. Going to show you more Tyke and Everett here. With Tyke in the backfield, all up in the face of the quarterback, makes him feel uncomfortable.
And that's him being aggressive. Great thing, because again, look at what we're talking about here. This in essence is a 3-4 setup, and he's the outside linebacker in this setup. And being very aggressive, he saw it on multiple occasions, knowing not to mess with, knowing, hey, I'm not going to make a play if the ball is handed off on the other side of the field. Just go get the quarterback. He did it earlier in the game as well. Good tackling by Everett. If you're going to play corner, you better tackle. Otherwise, you're not going to.
I thought Everett played a good game. I think he's
very solid.
I don't want to say he's solidified that number 2 spot. That
that's an interesting point you make, because they're still rotating him and Humphrey, and I actually bet that this year, above all years, will happen consistently. I don't see that unless one just starts separating himself and making consistent play after play after play. I bet you're going to see both of those guys play throughout the majority of the season.
One potential weakness for Georgia, which, look, there weren't many that were exploited by Ball State, so I hope people don't hear and say, Dayne saying Georgia's got a problem with this.
No.
Saying if you're trying to pinpoint the thing that a future offensive coordinator might try to do with Georgia, and most teams try to do this.
Yeah.
This is sorry. Get them in coverage. Get an inside linebacker in coverage on an athlete.
Yep, and that's often that's offense coordinator's job in general, is to create those matchups. But like, what's amazing about this play was the longest play from scrimmage for them, and they still only had 224 total yards of offense, so it wasn't much. But you're going to – the thing with Georgia's opponents, much like you saw Alabama this weekend, when you don't have a precision passing game, what does your passing game end up being? Chuck it. Like, down the field, try to push the ball down the field. And, you're going to have to make these plays. And you saw it a couple times from Ball State, and Everett made a few plays. There was a few overthrows. Teams are going to take those chances because they can't consistently move the ball on you.
And this is nothing fancy here. This is just, I'm going to run past you this way and see if I get by you. And maybe Sore can keep up with him if he gets his body turned a little bit quicker. I'd also like for Dan Jackson to take a more direct path to the ball here, because you'll see he really has no one in his area. So I wish he would take a more direct path to where that ball carrier is. But I'm nitpicking super hard right now.
Picking nits. You're picking nits. I will say this, though, concept-wise. If you're thinking about big picture concept-wise, what does, say, South Carolina look at the first 2 games and say, hey, where can I possibly exploit Georgia's defense? It's when you run play action and have flow going sort of one way, because you have a lot of the sort of play coming to the right, and then you're throwing back deep middle crossing routes back to the left. Like Lassiter against UT Martin got put in an absolute blender, much like Marvin Harrison did. The kid just dropped the ball. The ball was short. Couldn't make the play, but he was wide open. And a lot of it's where Georgia's rules and how they flow to the ball are certain things, and thus you're running patterns away from that sort of flow based upon their coverage. To not try not to get really nerdy there.
Yeah, finally, we wanted to give a shout out here to just some of the young guys. This is late in the game. But Georgia got a lot of the freshmen in there. Particularly, I was impressed with 29 Harris.
Yep, and he's not playing on the edge here. Like he's a down, almost in that potential Michael type role moving forward, and explosiveness. Like he was the first of those freshman edge players to play last week against UT Martin. Made it sort of flashed and made some plays. And really, to me, you want to see the flashes. You want to see what can you get potentially from this person on a down by down basis consistently. And he's had some flashes. Miller was another. I thought that flashed today, very strong on the interior. I watched Jordan Hall a lot towards the end, and I thought his get off was a little better. Game 2, he wasn't being moved at all. So some steps in the right direction for a lot of these young guys.
Yeah, and look, the more I'm seeing 33 on the field, CJ Allen, the more I like it. It looks like that next Georgia great inside linebacker to me.
I think he's taken that third spot and going to see. And by the way, when you think about now, granted, a lot of it's just depth issues in general, but when you play early, like, and you see true freshmen like getting meaningful reps early like that at that type of position, what's it tell you? It tells you they're really good right here.
I mean, we'll know in SEC season when it's Pop and Munden.
And then he's the third guy
next on the field.
Yep.
Overall, Georgia's defense, solid game, wasn't really tested. It'll be more tested against South Carolina, but I see a defensive front for Georgia that should be able to feast on a South Carolina offensive line that is kind of a struggle.
Thus far, it has been, yes, for them. Thus far.
We'll break it down next week. Thanks, Breda Pest Management, ASW Distilleries, for sponsoring us. Support them because they support us. Subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give it the thumbs up. Brent always likes when you do. It makes him feel very special. Thanks for watching, everyone. Oh, you give us the thumbs up?
Yes, why not? That's algorithms, right?
I don't know that I've given.
Well, I do go in there, and if people want to gripe, like tell me to get like new signs, like Paul always does, I'll engage and we'll comment back and go forth.
It's a fun time. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.